Alrighty guys, before this race can starts, I gotta just tell you guys something. We had two drivers who were having technical problems throughout this race. Michael's game kept crashing, and so he wasn't able to like half the race he wasn't even in the race. His AI was driving for him, which was set I think 70 or 80%. And then Elijah's wheel kept turning off, which kept screwing him over into turns and stuff. So they both had a some pretty bad races, but you'll see how we dealt with that at the end of the race. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Let's look here at the driver standings. As of now, Michael is 6 points ahead of Elijah. Elijah is 12 points ahead of David here. David is so much farther ahead of Dylan, and then it drops down. Nate and Caden only separated by 1 point, and only 4 points separating Caden and Liam. So there's a little fight in that midfield area down there. So it's gonna be really interesting to see who obviously gets on top there. As we saw that Kevin made his first appearance there in Monza, he got 8 points ahead. If we look at the constructors here, Mercedes at 239, Ferrari and McLaren tied on points, 7 points separating them and Mercedes. Red Bull dropped over 100 points back. Big difference down there, but there and VCarb only separated by 9 points, so big change there. Michael tops off the grid today with David and Elijah in P2 and 3. Caden and Nate will not be joining us in the race. They had to go leave, but they were in 4 and 5. So Dylan will take P5, also will take P5. I mean, Dylan will take P4. Kevin and Armando will take P6 and 7 to round out the grid. It'll be, I think, a really interesting race today. So let's just see how everything gets on. And it's lights out and away we go. Elijah fails to start. Michael actually gets a pretty good start, a little bit better than David. David gets a little bit ahead, but Michael goes around. David tried to go for a gap that wasn't there. Austin makes his way up into P2. We have David dropping down to P3. We got Dylan still in P4. Armando up into P5. Elijah down into P7. And Michael is now trying to increase that gap as he's trying to hope maybe that Austin holds David back, but David is quickly getting back around Austin, not giving him the chance. Austin gets thrown into the wall there by, looks like Dylan here, letting him through again. So Austin's still in P3. This is potentially going to be an interesting race here as Elijah is still back in P7, not got past a single back marker. There he goes around Kevin there. So he has a lot of time to make up now as Michael and David are flying ahead here. They're about 2 seconds ahead from the rest of the grid, and throughout this section where Austin is particularly slow, they're going to gain a lot more time here. David's sliding a little bit there. Michael's getting good traction. David, though, still with a great exit, closing the gap even more to Michael, but going to stay behind for the DRS for the long straight that comes up. Azerbaijan is known for one of the longest straights on the track calendar here, and I mean, obviously it's a really long straight here with 2 small turns there in the middle, but you can get past almost anyone if you're at least 6/10 behind them, and he is a lot closer than that, only through 4/10. So we're gonna see if Michael maybe dumps his battery here. Same with David, to try and keep the distance here. They're around the 4.5 area, closing a little bit. David's deciding to recharge here as he does not get around, but now Austin's 4 seconds behind. Elijah gets around Dylan, who's dropped down to P6, now down to P7 as the Red Bulls make their way up into P3 and 4. Quickly, Elijah cuts them in half there. He goes up there into P4. He is now charging after Austin, who is now 4 seconds behind the leaders. Now, David does get DRS down that straight, but he has been recharging throughout this section. He's not been gaining the speed that he needs. It seems like he's been just stuck on recharging here. Austin now out of the... He's now getting closer to the 5-second area here as we see that time increase even more. But Elijah still has to close a 1.6-second gap before he can reach Austin. So if Michael and David keep increasing that gap to Austin, it'll be even tougher for Elijah to close that gap down and have a chance at the win. It's still really early. It's only the 2nd lap of the race here. David's 7/10 behind Michael here. Dylan, who has just had an absolutely horrible race, 33 seconds behind the Aston Martin, is not something you want to see. Elijah has closed down that gap from Austin already. He was about 2 seconds or so behind. He's now to 7/10, but the gap from David to Austin was at around 4. It's now at 6.5. David may have a chance here. He is dumping his battery. He's just not able to find the move. Michael is able to keep speed ahead of him and push even farther than he can on that main straight. But here's also another area where he gets the DRS. He gets a faster exit. On average, David does get better exits than Michael around this track. As we've seen, coming out of exits, on average, David is faster than him. So you also see in the back, though, Elijah's still around that 7/10 mark. He wasn't able to get ahead there. Austin's now 7.6 seconds behind, 7.8 now. As that gap increases even more. These two leaders here, they are gapping everyone else. David is waiting patiently, just like he did in Saudi Arabia, if you remember. He waited for Michael to wear out his own tires playing defense, as David just had that natural pace to beat Michael. Michael had to push using battery, using late braking just to stay ahead. I think he's waiting for Michael to chew through his tires and then just absolutely like just fly by him when he eventually slides out, which is, I honestly, a really great strategy. Throughout this season, Michael has had some of the worst tire management out of any of the top 4 or even 5. Not really able to keep his tires in check. In Monza, he actually did fairly well going on those hard tires for a fairly long stretch, almost 12 laps or so. David's a much closer now than he was in the previous, so we'll see how this plays out. But looks like Michael is just dumping down the straight, so David doesn't have a chance. He's getting a lot closer though, just 2/10. Is he going to try and move? He does not. Still 3/10 behind, waiting for the next DRS straight, which is just up here. If Michael overused his battery, David can just sneak by. But the gap has increased a lot, but it quickly came down. David had a great move. David goes he goes along the outside. He quickly passes Michael here. As Michael starts slowing down quite a bit. Michael seems to just be losing time, maybe car problems. But he's already out of the second there. As we can see too, Elijah's still down in P6, 14 seconds. As we can see though, Elijah's still down in that P6 area, 14 seconds behind Armando. So he's clearly had some car troubles too here. Seems like the Mercedes of Dylan has caught up though. Even David seems to be sliding with slight problems there, giving Michael a chance to catch up a little bit here, but there isn't much Michael can do if he is having car problems here. I mean, we would just expect that if this keeps happening, David is going to fly away with the lead, and there won't be much for Michael to do with this. I mean, the gap, though, between Michael and Austin has still risen quite a bit. It's up to 13 seconds, and Austin is clearly not dropping, or, I mean, not gaining on him. He's getting a little bit, but obviously, like, not too much. The gap between Michael and David is quickly growing. Looks like a safety car is now out as Armando has crashed somewhere on the track. Do not know where, but he has in fact DNF'd. It's going to give everyone a chance to catch up here. I mean, as you can see here, Michael's tires seem to be fairly damaged, but he's starting to catch up now. Obviously, now that it is a safety car, it does not really matter all that much, but looks like both him and David are going into the pits now for fresh tires. I mean, that was a great pit stop from Mercedes, keeping him ahead there. Everyone's still fairly far behind, but after that pit stop, they will be closing down, unless if they also go in there for the pits. It looks like Michael and David there collided a little bit. Don't know what that there was all about. Michael could have... Honestly, no idea. That was extremely stupid of him. Looks like Michael went into the pits again for some reason. Seems like Ferrari called him in once again, but he has now lost positions. Getting his wing replaced too, making him lose 2 positions, one to Elijah and then one to Austin. Obviously, there's still not that much to talk about, except for the fact that Elijah now has a chance at the lead. The safety car really saved him. Ferrari has done something. They must have seen something that Michael didn't, needed a change for tires or repairs on the front wing. They had to do they needed to do something apparently. See there, I'm closing it. Finally, the some of the back markers are starting to close down on the front of the grid here. Should only be one more lap, and then we will see a restart. Now, as every single car here is, we believe that there will be the safety car will come in on this lap. This is the rest of the grid starts to slow down for the safety car. My guys, I'll look for a quick move though around Austin. Elijah has to look for a quick move around David. David seems to really be slowing down here. As it is now green flags, and Michael has made his way around Austin already. Already charging for his move to Elijah here. David gets a great start on the safety car restart. Elijah moves off to the side a little bit there. Maybe also some problems there, but he is letting Michael go through to try and continue his battle and his chase with David here. Michael's still within that second. He's going to have to try and catch up for as much as possible here. Seems like he is definitely doing that though. I mean, Elijah's not too far behind. The top three are separated. The top four are separated by just a second at the moment. Not all four of them together, but they are separated by a second in between them. Michael taps the wall there a little bit, losing definitely a little bit of time though to David as David starts getting ahead. Michael starts dropping off a lot again. Dropping off by seconds every single turn. Just tense and tense. As we see here, Elijah is slowly catching up here to Michael. I think a lot slower than he had anticipated, but at the moment he's just trying to get ahead of Michael. As even Austin is closing on them. Something is really wrong with their cars at the moment. Now throughout this section, I believe he will probably start to close that gap down quite a bit. And Austin is even closed down to the moment the top two in the championship. Austin, Elijah and Michael are really struggling at the moment here, while Austin seems to be closing down on them, measuring similar pace at some points, even faster pace. You see now that, like, at least for a little bit, that as Michael fixed whatever problem it was, he was able to get ahead. But Elijah goes into the pits. Hard tires here. Could be set for the rest of the race. 15 laps would be fairly interesting, as he's gone 11 laps on those mediums. See here now, Elijah has won 2 of the past 3 races here, so he is still on a fairly he's gained a lot of points throughout these past couple races, and even beforehand he got second place 3 times. So if we talk about these past couple races here, he's had definitely the performance. And I mean, McLaren has just absolutely messed up his car. Something has been wrong with it. It started happening sometime in Monza. He started having some issues with the car, bad performance, and just unlucky contact with other drivers. And this race, it has been clearly just bad performance. Of the car, not of the driver. I mean, we put that driver in the Mercedes that's been fairly rapid through this track so far, gaining 5 seconds on Michael here. He'd probably even gain a higher lead at this point. He catches the slide there. He almost bended going into that wall there, but I mean, as Dylan closes up to Austin here for another podium spot, this would be quite interesting to see how so that plays out in terms of points for in the constructors. As at the moment, Ferrari getting 18, McLaren only getting 10, they would be ahead, but Mercedes, if they get that 13th, that third place, I mean, they get a plus 40 points, already being 7 points ahead of both Ferrari and McLaren. They'd be even so much farther ahead now. It would be 29 points ahead of Ferrari, and then, I mean, another 8 points added on to as they're ahead of McLaren here. So it's Austin pits. Elijah does move into P4. Dylan's still only 7 seconds away. Elijah's been able to find pace in that car, a car that has been screwing him over all weekend, only getting P3 in qualifying. But still, Dylan has 11 seconds to make up to Michael if they want to get a Mercedes 1-2. Michael's slowly closing the gap down. It was fairly high. It stayed about the same now on the 4.2 section. But every now and then we see a huge jump, like right now. He went from 4.2 to 5.2. Big jumps that we're seeing in that. But almost none on the other side. So it seems like it's performance from David pushing the car even more, getting ahead. As I say that, Dylan now drops that gap by about a couple tenths. So it is now, Dylan is already close to that sub 10 seconds to Michael here. The farther that this race goes here, I mean, I think Elijah may pass Dylan before this happens, but I mean, if Dylan can keep pace, maybe overtake Michael, Michael defend off Elijah, we could see a first ever Mercedes 1-2 at the top. And Elijah's slowly dropping that gap, not as much as Dylan is dropping the gap to Michael, but because of the fact Elijah's only 5.7 behind 5.9 and Dylan is still around the 9 seconds, we could definitely see a three-way battle there at the very end. I mean, Elijah's gap is actually slowly increasing here as Dylan's is still shrinking, so... Looks like as David pits for new tires here. Michael does actually get into the lead of the race, but David 1.3 seconds behind Dylan. Dylan 8.2 behind Michael, and Elijah just 4.7 behind David here. We're gonna see if maybe Elijah can catch up to him. Now David has had pace the entire race so far, with only 11 laps to go. He's had pace throughout the entire race to push and stay ahead, so it will be interesting. David already passes Dylan there, and Elijah's still fairly far back. David is closing that gap incredibly fast here. And I mean, he's increasing the gap to Dylan even faster. Michael at this pace won't be able to keep his first place. Even if he were to stay on these tires for the next 11 laps and never pit, he'd be behind Austin at the moment if he were to pit. But I mean, as he pits right now, he drops behind David. He drops behind Dylan. Now he drops behind Elijah to get into that. Elijah's now in that podium position here at the moment. It is a a Mercedes 1-2. First time we've ever seen both Mercedes drivers in a P1-2 position here. But we have Elijah closing the gap, 3.2 seconds. Michael did get out ahead of Austin, but as it stands, he's going to the gap for the championship is going to be extremely close going into Singapore here. The gap of just 6 points between Michael and Elijah. After this, we'll drop down to just 3, and the gap between David and Michael, which at the moment stands at a 18-point gap. Would drop down to a 5-point gap. So the top 3 would be separated by just 5 points if the standings remain the way that they do. But Elijah's found pace. Second gained on David and dropping. Michael kind of closing the gap, but he's not really able to keep or make up any more time than he has been. Elijah gets P2, Michael gets P4. They would be tied on points going into Singapore, and David would still be 5 points behind. But that would be an interesting predicament. If it stays how it is, whoever wins the Singapore Grand Prix will retake the lead of the championship. But Michael and Elijah would be tied on points going into the race. An interesting perspective to think about. The fact that we know that Singapore is Michael's favorite track, but David is not one to lose on a street circuit. You know that Elijah has found pace in this middle part of the season here, faster than almost any other driver. I mean, look at the pace that he's been showing so far these past couple laps. He dropped a 4 or 5 second gap down to 1.4 in a 1.5 laps. But Michael's also now found pace, dropping the gap between him and Elijah down a couple tenths, maybe even more. We know too that Singapore is Michael's favorite track, so he has a lot of pace around there. He's driven that track plenty of times, and while Elijah has found pace in this middle part of the season, as it stands, David is yet to lose a street circuit track. Even somewhat hybrid street circuit like Saudi Arabia is definitely one of those that come to mind. He won in Saudi Arabia, he won in Monaco. He wins on those street circuits, and I mean, as it stands, he's going to be winning in Baku. as Elijah goes for his final pit stop. With 8 laps left, he's going on to, I believe, another set of mediums here. Elijah does have a 14-second gap to make up here, but we will definitely see. As Michael is now closing that gap though to Dylan, he may be able to make a move around Dylan here and get into that P2 spot, trying to stop Mercedes from getting that P1 too. Okay, now within a second, having now overtaken Dylan there, believing that Dylan may have gone into the pit, so I believe Elijah will pass him here as well. Yeah, we do see him there in the pits. So now going up into P3, the top 3 now back to what they were at the start of the Grand Prix. Only difference is now that David is now leading the race. Michael and David have swapped spots. And I mean, we can see here David, who's how far ahead. He's really 6 laps to go, 21-second lead, but I don't believe that anything could really stop him from could stop this gap from closing, or phrase could make this gap close here. The only thing would be a safety car maybe. And as I say it, a safety car does in fact come out. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens now, as looks like the second Red Bull driver has in fact DNF'd now. Sadly, we do not have video recording of it, but we do know that it was a racing incident between Dylan and Austin. A little tap going around the near the just after the castle section led Austin to tapping the wall and sadly retiring from the race. But one thing though is for certain is that David's lead now that he's been building up is going to drop. Now he has a 28-second lead on lap 21 of 26. Nobody would close that gap as long as David had not made a mistake, or if any outside anything outside, like for instance a safety car, or to call something. And just before this turn was where Austin had sadly crashed and retired. Luckily still okay. I mean, how do you think, right? Would this be a good time to pit for maybe some softs to finish out the race? I know how bad the tire wear is. Like, on average, soft tires gain about 8 to 10% by the end of the every lap. So we see here what he chooses to do. Looks like he is choosing to go into the pits. It is a free pit stop, 28-second gap. He's perfectly fine with going into the pits. He won't have to worry. And he is going on to those soft tires. Now it's also a curious thought to know if maybe Ferrari and McLaren will do the same thing, as we can see that McLaren is actually Elijah has jumped Michael in the for P2 there. This happened while I was not paying attention. But now we have to wait for the rest of the grid to form up. Now Kevin he just unlapped himself. We see him right in front of the safety car actually. Anyways, he had to slow down. He had to give the championship leader some room, as he's going to pass right before the safety car ends. So Kevin will not be getting up into any higher position other than P5. I mean, 4 laps left in this race here. We can see now that, I mean, Elijah is still on the medium tire. He did not pit, so it's going to be harder for him to chase after David for the lead of the race when the safety car eventually comes in. We can see here as Michael starts pulling up, if he also maybe switched to the mediums. No, he's on hard tires, which will make it even more difficult for him to make a move onto David. As we can see, it looks like Elijah did in fact go into the pits, trying to pit maybe onto those soft tires. We gotta wait. Don't know where Dylan's at. There he is, crossing the line there. He will in fact get ahead of Elijah. So Elijah's back down into P4 under safety car. As long as everything stays the same, Michael will be gaining an even larger lead to Elijah, and David will be closing that gap to Elijah. If I remember, the gap between Michael and David is 18, so that means the gap between David and Elijah is 12, which means David will be 1 point ahead of Elijah if everything stays the way that it does right now. We still have to wait for the safety car restart here. I should be in this lap, which means we will be getting at least 3 laps of racing. Mike will have a chance at trying to go after David. On old hard tires, though, will be interesting. Dylan actually has a better chance at going after Michael, and so does Elijah, actually. On fresh softs going into this, it'd be really interesting to see how that unfolds, but so Michael's slowing down once again. Curious to know if he will be passed by Dylan and Elijah. That's what happens with ghost cars. As you can see, he is invisible right there. It looks like safety car in this lap. Here, Kevin is allowed to unlap himself. Usually they are. Interesting here. goes in. Michael goes into the pits. So safety car restarts, and David is flying ahead here. We see that Elijah slowed down here, and so did Dylan. They've lost so much time, and Michael, for some reason, Ferrari has called Michael into the pits, and he listened to Ferrari asking him to go into the pits with 2 laps left on a safety car restart. Now that is interesting. Kevin, who is now even farther back because he was not allowed to unlap himself on the safety car restart, or just before it. He is now fallen even further back, but it doesn't matter, or it could have definitely mattered if he was allowed to unlap himself at the very beginning, as he would have been into P4, as Michael had been called into the pits and he went into the pits. And now, as Elijah is 7 seconds behind David here, there's now just 2 laps left. It will be really interesting to see how this plays out. And as Dylan actually passes Elijah there, Elijah's even farther back now. Michael's within range of potentially making a move to overtake Elijah at the end of the race. This is an interesting predicament here. Elijah and Michael have been screwed over this entire race through conditions out of their control, as we've seen that Elijah's randomly started losing pace. This is because of his wheel being disconnected. We've seen Michael randomly losing pace because he's been kicked from the lobby. He's been kicked from the game, and he was not able to keep racing. And so we had an AI who is obviously much slower than him, as we have to put an AI equal to the slowest driver, who sadly at the moment is Kevin, who's equal to around 65 to 70 AI. I think we put it at 70 to 75, but because of this, he wasn't, when he got disconnected, he would lose a lot of time to the top drivers. And they would also, the AI would also pit him for literally no reason, as you saw on the safety car restart. So it becomes interesting here. Now, this does not take away from David's absolutely incredible race. I mean, no matter what, he's had to keep this pace the entire race. He's pushed farther than what we've seen. His little battle with Michael, he was making Michael wear out his tires. As we saw when he rejoined, he immediately started sliding. The pace that David has shown today is what we're used to since the beginning of the race. He had a bit of a setback where Austria, Michael had won, both Silverstone and Spa, Elijah had won, and then in Monza, when he did not show up, Michael won once again. So it's been a while since he's been on this top step, but as he comes around these corners here, he's right now in sector 2, just 2 more sectors. He's 22 seconds ahead of second place, what we are 100% used to, like in Saudi Arabia, like in Monaco, like in Canada, like in all of these races where we've seen him dominate with 20-25 second gaps to just second place, and even farther gaps to the drivers behind second. It's quite a crazy predicament, and but overall it's a great masterclass and a show of pace. His race start was absolutely perfect. He went for a gap that was maybe a little bit too small, but at the end of the day, he made it stick. He was able to keep second. He was able to push ahead of Michael, And I mean, he's shown the pace throughout these couple laps. He has fastest lap there, so there's no denying it. He's coming up to the checkered flag. David wins the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and takes his first victory since Canada over 4 races ago, but it is a well-deserved win. And I mean, this puts them back into the fight here. We gave both Michael and Elijah second place points as they both were struggling there, but it gives them, he's within 11 points of first place. David gets that third. And I mean, wow, that was obviously gives him a boost. He's fourth driver into 100 points. 2 DNFs for Red Bull. It's not the best look there, but a lot of drivers who did not start, quite surprising. But Kevin getting fourth place points in just a second race, putting him up to 20 points. We can look at the driver standings, 40 points for Mercedes, a first and third. It's exactly what we were talking about. Both Ferrari and McLaren getting 18 points, which means that they are tied again, this time going into Singapore. Red Bull not getting anything, V Corp getting nothing, as no drivers for V Corp were here, but Aston Martin going up into 20. It was a beautiful race.